What if I told you that scattered across our world are buildings so impossibly advanced, so perfectly engineered, that they couldn't have been constructed by the civilizations we're told built them? What if these structures weren't just architectural marvels, but evidence of something far more extraordinary than our history books dare to admit? Today we're diving into one of the most suppressed mysteries of our time. The lost empire of Tartaria and the impossible buildings they left behind. Buildings that defy everything we think we know about construction, engineering, and the capabilities of past civilizations. By the end of this investigation, you'll never look at old architecture the same way again. But before we begin, I need to show you something that will change how you see the world around you. Take a walk through any major city. Look up at the grand buildings from the 19th and early 20th centuries. Notice the incredible detail, the massive scale, the perfect symmetry. Now ask yourself a simple question. How did people, without modern machinery, without computer design, without advanced materials, create structures that we struggle to replicate today? The answer we've been given doesn't add up. And once you see the evidence I'm about to present, the comfortable lies begin to crumble. Let's start with something that should make you deeply uncomfortable. The official timeline of human development tells us that architectural sophistication evolved gradually over thousands of years. Stone Age dwellings gave way to simple buildings, which slowly became more complex as human knowledge advanced. This is the story of steady progress, from primitive to advanced, that we've all been taught. But examine the actual buildings around you, and this narrative falls apart immediately. The most magnificent structures, the ones that showcase the highest levels of craftsmanship and engineering brilliance, all seem to cluster around the same mysterious period. The mid-1800s to early 1900s. Suddenly, as if by magic, humanity achieved architectural perfection, and then just as suddenly, we stopped building this way entirely. Walk through the downtown core of any American city built during this period. Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Detroit. The buildings from this era are not just impressive, they're impossible. The level of detail carved into stone facades would take master craftsmen years to complete. The structural engineering required to support such massive weights without modern steel framework should have been beyond the capabilities of the time. The precision of the stonework, with joints so tight you can't slip a piece of paper between them, suggests tools and techniques that supposedly didn't exist. Yet we're told these architectural miracles were built by people using 19th century technology. Horse-drawn carts to move massive stone blocks, hand tools to carve intricate details, steam-powered equipment that was primitive by today's standards. The math simply doesn't work. Consider the timeline we're given for the construction of these buildings. The Chicago World's Fair of 1893, officially called the World's Columbian Exposition, featured hundreds of massive, ornate buildings that were supposedly constructed in just 2 years. These weren't simple structures. They were palaces of such grandeur and complexity that they looked like they belonged in ancient Rome or Renaissance Italy. Multiple stories high, covered in elaborate sculptures, featuring perfect columns and arches, with interior spaces that could hold thousands of people. We're told these buildings were temporary, made of a material called staff, essentially plaster over a wooden frame, and that they were all demolished after the fair ended. But look at the photographs. These structures don't look temporary. They look permanent, solid, built to last centuries. The level of detail, the massive foundations, the sophisticated engineering, all suggest buildings designed for permanence, not a 6-month exhibition. And here's where it gets truly suspicious. Similar World's Fairs were happening all across America and Europe during this same period. Buffalo, St. Louis, San Francisco, Paris, London. Each one featured the same impossible architecture. Massive buildings constructed in impossible timeframes, and then mysteriously destroyed when the fairs ended, as if someone was revealing these structures to the public temporarily. creating a historical record of their existence and then making them disappear again. But some buildings survived, and these survivors tell a story that official history desperately wants to suppress. Travel to St. Petersburg, Russia, and examine the Winter Palace. This massive complex contains over 1,500 rooms, features facades covered in intricate stonework, and displays engineering sophistication that rivals anything built today. The official story tells us it was constructed in the 1700s by Russian craftsmen using period tools and techniques. But the scale and precision suggest something else entirely. The palace contains rooms with ceilings so high they require special equipment just to maintain them. The stonework displays tolerances that modern construction struggles to achieve. The foundation work extends deep into the earth, suggesting knowledge of soil engineering that wasn't supposed to exist at the time. And the speed of construction, officially completed in just 8 years, would be impressive even with modern machinery and methods. Similar patterns appear across Europe. The Palace of Versailles in France, officially built in the 1600s, features engineering marvels that shouldn't have been possible. The Hall of Mirrors alone contains 357 mirrors, each one perfectly crafted and installed with precision that suggests advanced manufacturing techniques. The gardens feature water systems that require sophisticated understanding of hydraulics and pressure dynamics. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what we find when we examine the official records of these constructions. The documentation is remarkably sparse. For buildings that required massive workforces, enormous amounts of materials, and years of coordinated effort, the paper trail is surprisingly thin. Construction records are missing or vague. Worker accounts are virtually non-existent. Financial records don't match the scale of the projects. It's as if these buildings appeared rather than being built, as if they were discovered and restored rather than constructed from scratch. This pattern becomes even more obvious when we look at North America. The state capitol buildings, the grand railway stations, the massive hotels and department stores that define the architectural character of American cities from this period. They all share the same impossible characteristics. Massive scale, incredible detail, perfect engineering, and construction timelines that don't make sense. Take the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C. The official story tells us construction began in 1793 and continued for decades with various additions and modifications. But examine the structure itself. The dome, supposedly added in the 1860s, required engineering knowledge and construction techniques that were supposedly cutting edge for the time. Yet, it was completed during the Civil War, when the nation's resources and attention were focused elsewhere. The building features stonework so precise that modern architects struggle to understand how it was achieved. The foundation extends deep underground, with basement levels that seem designed for purposes beyond simple storage. The overall design shows understanding of acoustics, lighting, and climate control that wasn't supposed to exist in the 18th and 19th centuries. And here's something truly strange. If you examine old maps of Washington, D.C. from the early 1800s, they show the Capitol building already in place, already completed, at dates that contradict the official construction timeline, as if the building was there before the city was officially planned around it. This same pattern appears in cities across America. Buildings that official records claim were constructed during specific periods, but which appear in earlier documents, photographs, or maps that suggest they're much older than we're told. Buildings that show signs of being cleaned, restored, or repurposed rather than built from scratch. The evidence points to something extraordinary. These magnificent structures weren't built by the civilizations we're told built them. They were inherited, discovered, claimed by cultures that found them already standing and simply moved in, creating new histories to explain their existence. But if these buildings weren't built by Americans, Europeans, or Russians in the time periods we're told, Then who did build them? And when? And why does official history work so hard to hide the truth? The answer leads us into territory that challenges everything we think we know about the recent past, about the true history of human civilization, and about a lost empire whose very existence has been erased from our collective memory, an empire known as Tartaria. The term Tartaria appears on maps from the 16th through 19th centuries, covering vast territories across northern Asia and parts of Europe. To modern historians, this was simply a catch-all name used by Western cartographers for regions they didn't fully understand, a geographical designation for the lands of various Turkic and Mongol peoples, nothing more than a mapping convention. But what if that explanation is deliberately misleading? What if Tartaria wasn't just a name on a map, but evidence of something far more significant that has been systematically erased from our understanding of history? Examine those old maps more carefully. Tartaria isn't depicted as a collection of scattered tribes or loose confederations. It's shown as a unified empire spanning continents, with clear borders, established cities, and sophisticated infrastructure. The mapmakers who drew these weren't guessing or filling in blank spaces. They were documenting a political and cultural entity that existed within living memory. Maps from the 1700s show Tartarian cities connected by networks of roads and trade routes. They depict architectural symbols suggesting permanent settlements with significant buildings. Some maps even include detailed illustrations of Tartarian structures, showing architectural styles that match the impossible buildings we've been examining. Yet somehow, by the 1800s, this vast empire simply disappears from the historical record. No gradual decline, no recorded conquest, no documentation of what happened to millions of people across thousands of miles of territory. One moment Tartaria dominates the maps of the known world, and the next moment it's gone, replaced by the Russian Empire and other political entities that claim those territories as if Tartaria never existed. This erasure becomes even more suspicious when you examine what replaced it. The Russian expansion eastward during this period supposedly involved conquering and settling vast empty territories. But those territories weren't empty. They contained cities, infrastructure, and populations that had to go somewhere. The official story suggests these were primitive nomadic peoples, easily absorbed or displaced. But the architectural evidence suggests something entirely different. Travel through Siberia today, and you'll find massive stone buildings in remote locations where no significant population centers are supposed to have existed. Railway stations built to scales that dwarf the communities they supposedly served. Government buildings designed for administrative needs far beyond what the official population numbers would require. Churches and civic structures that suggest wealthy, sophisticated urban centers rather than frontier outposts. These buildings share the same impossible characteristics we've seen elsewhere: precision stonework, massive scale, engineering sophistication that shouldn't have been possible given the supposed timeline and resources. They look like the infrastructure of a major civilization, not the scattered settlements of a sparsely populated wilderness. The Trans-Siberian Railway, completed in the early 1900s, is officially described as one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Building a railway across thousands of miles of wilderness, through mountain ranges and frozen tundra, using early 20th century technology. But examine the route more carefully. The railway doesn't carve through virgin territory. It connects existing cities following paths that suggest pre-existing transportation networks. Many of the stations along the route are architectural marvels that dwarf anything built for railways elsewhere. These aren't simple depot buildings designed to serve scattered settlements. They're massive structures built to accommodate large populations and significant commercial activity, as if the railway wasn't opening new territory, but reconnecting parts of an existing civilization that had been temporarily disrupted. The same pattern appears in other parts of the former Tartarian territories. In Central Asia, massive buildings stand in locations that official history claims were always sparsely populated. In Mongolia, Archaeological sites reveal urban centres far more sophisticated than the nomadic culture we're told dominated the region. In Eastern Europe, cities contain architectural layers that suggest much older, more advanced foundations beneath the structures attributed to more recent builders. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from examining the people themselves. Travel through these regions today, and you'll encounter populations with features, languages, and cultural traditions that don't fit the official narrative of who should be living there. Groups that maintain oral histories speaking of great cities and advanced civilizations that existed in the recent past. Stories that describe a time when their ancestors lived in magnificent buildings and possessed technologies that were later lost. These aren't ancient legends about mythical times. These are cultural memories of events within the last few centuries. Descriptions of libraries, schools, and workshops that produced goods traded across continents. Accounts of agricultural techniques and urban planning that suggest populations far larger and more sophisticated than official demographics acknowledge. The suppression of this information becomes obvious when you try to research it through academic channels. Scholarly papers that mention Tartarian architecture are rare and dismissive. Archaeological excavations in former Tartarian territories are limited and their findings minimally published. University courses on the history of these regions skip over entire centuries, jumping from ancient periods directly to modern Russian or Chinese control, without explaining what happened in between. When evidence does surface, it's quickly recontextualized. Buildings that clearly predate official settlement dates are attributed to later construction projects. Archaeological finds that suggest advanced urban centers are dismissed as trading posts or temporary settlements. Architectural features that demonstrate sophisticated engineering are explained as the work of imported craftsmen or foreign influences. This systematic suppression extends to the photography and documentation from the period when these territories were being officially incorporated into modern nation-states. Early photographs show cities that are far more developed than the frontier settlements they're supposed to represent. Buildings that are clearly ancient being restored rather than constructed. Infrastructure that suggests long-established urban centers rather than recent colonial outposts. The photographic evidence is particularly damning because cameras don't lie about what existed at specific moments in time. These images show a level of civilization and development that contradicts everything we're told about the timeline of human settlement in these regions. They document the existence of a sophisticated urban culture that was thriving in territories officially described as wilderness. But here's where the evidence becomes truly extraordinary. The architectural styles, engineering techniques, and urban planning principles found in these former Tartarian territories match exactly what we see in the impossible buildings of Europe and North America from the same period. The same precision stonework, the same massive scales, the same engineering sophistication that shouldn't have been possible with officially available technology. It's as if the same civilization that built the grand structures of St. Petersburg, Paris, and Washington also built the magnificent cities across Asia that have been attributed to other cultures or erased from history entirely. As if there was a global architectural and engineering tradition that connected continents and produced buildings using advanced techniques that we've lost or been prevented from understanding. This raises the most disturbing possibility of all. What if the Tartarian Empire wasn't just a regional power that controlled parts of Asia? What if it was a global civilization that built the impossible architecture we find scattered across every continent? What if the magnificent buildings in our major cities aren't the products of European or American ingenuity, but remnants of a worldwide empire that has been systematically erased from our historical consciousness? The implications are staggering. If true, it means our entire understanding of recent history is fundamentally wrong. That the timeline of technological development, political power, and cultural achievement has been deliberately falsified. That we're living among the ruins of a civilization far more advanced than anything we've been told existed, and that the truth has been hidden behind comfortable lies about gradual progress and European superiority. The evidence is overwhelming once you start looking. The impossible buildings are real. The architectural sophistication is undeniable. The engineering achievements speak for themselves. And the systematic suppression of information about Tartaria suggests that someone has worked very hard to make sure we don't ask the right questions about what we're really looking at. The pattern becomes even more disturbing when you examine what happened during the supposed construction period of these magnificent buildings. The 1800s weren't just a time of architectural miracles. They were decades marked by catastrophic events that should have made large-scale construction nearly impossible. Look at the historical record. The 1810s and 20s saw massive crop failures across Europe and North America. Volcanic winters caused by the eruption of Mount Tambora created global climate chaos. Famines swept across continents. Populations were displaced. Entire regions struggled with basic survival. Yet somehow, during these same decades of crisis, humanity was supposedly achieving its greatest architectural triumphs. The timeline makes no sense. When societies are fighting starvation and displacement, they don't simultaneously embark on massive construction projects requiring enormous resources and coordinated labor. They focus on survival. They build simple, functional structures designed to meet immediate needs. They certainly don't create architectural masterpieces that require years of skilled craftsmanship and vast amounts of expensive materials. But that's exactly what the official record claims happened. While populations were dying from hunger and cold, master craftsmen were supposedly carving elaborate facades and erecting impossible monuments. While transportation networks were disrupted and trade collapsed, massive stone blocks were somehow being moved across continents and precisely fitted into place. While governments were struggling to maintain basic services, they were apparently funding architectural projects that would challenge modern engineering capabilities. The evidence surrounds us, etched in stone and mortar, waiting for those willing to see beyond the comfortable narratives we've been fed. Every impossible building, every architectural marvel that defies its supposed timeline, every structure that showcases engineering brilliance beyond its era's capabilities, tells the same story. We are living among the remnants of something extraordinary that has been deliberately erased from our collective memory. The lost empire of Tartaria didn't just build cities. They built a global civilization whose achievements we can barely comprehend, let alone replicate. The next time you walk past one of these magnificent structures, remember that you're not just looking at a building. You're looking at evidence of a hidden history that someone desperately wants you to forget.